When light first hits the eye, it goes to the cornea, which protects the eye as well as bends the light to provide focus. The light then travels through the pupil, which acts as an opening that is controlled by the iris, which is the colored muscle that expands or constricts depending on the light intensity or even inner emotions. The lens is right behind the pupil, and it focuses on incoming light rays and completes the focus by changing the shape based on distance. As you get older, the lens hardens and you lose that focus. That is why corrective lenses are used to correct that issue. Once light continues to pass through the lens, it hits the retina, which is a thin inner surface of the back of the eye. This begins to process information from the light waves. The retina contains densely packed photoreceptors, which also holds the fovea, where visual acuity is highest, which is the ability to see in high detail. Rods are part of the retina that detect black, white, and gray. They are specific to peripheral and night vision. Cones are also part of the retina that detect fine detail as well as color in bright light or daylight. Bipolar cells are connected to the rods and cones that connect and transmit information from the ganglion cells. The ganglion cells then receive the information from the bipolar cells and send the information to the brain. The way this information travels is through the optic nerve connected to the brain and ganglion cells. All sensory information goes to the thalamus. This includes vision. The thalamus begins the processing and sends the image to the appropriate area. What should be mentioned prior is the optic chiasm, which is reached before the thalamus and is basically where the two optic nerves cross, left eye to the right brain and right eye to the left brain. After the thalamus, information is sent to the visual cortex, which is within the occipital lobe. The main job for the visual cortex is to continue further processing for the occipital. It's just a part of the cerebral cortex involving vision. The neurons in the visual cortex are called feature detectors and basically sort and respond to that visual aspect by sending the specific information to neural networks. For example, when you see someone you recognize, then once the features detector receives that message, they will send it to the specific part of the brain, which in this case is the fusiform gyrus. The thing to also mention is that your eye has a blind spot, and it exists in the middle of your field of vision, which is right here. This is caused because of your optic nerve and its location where it leaves the eye. It also has no receptor cells, but our brain fortunately fills that gap. There is also a couple theories to consider. The opponent process theory states that the visual system, the process takes place in complementary colors. For example, red is green, or yellow or blue. As for the trichromatic theory, there are 3 colors receptors. One is most sensitive to red, the other is blue, the other being green. This creates perception of any color. Anything that you see, for example, this video is being processed and is reacting all of the time. This is just a breakdown of what happens in 13 milliseconds. Now to the ears. It all starts in the pinna, which is the visible part of the ear. Its job is to collect sounds and made it directing to the auditory canal, which channels sound waves into the eardrum. This is all considered part of the outer ear. The eardrum is a thin membrane that vibrates when sound hits it. Basically attached to the eardrum, there are 3 bones, being the hammer, which moves the vibrations to the anvil, which then passes that vibration to the sternum, which is considered the smallest bone. These are all considered the middle ear. The vibrations from the sternum then get sent to the cochlea. This is a fluid-filled tube that is coiled. The sound waves then trigger nerve impulses. That fluid in the cochlea then moves the hair cells in the basilar membrane, which is this stuff right here, which is the inner lining of the cochlea. That nerve impulse is sent to the auditory nerve, which is sent to the auditory cortex, which is part of the temporal lobe. Specifically, it sends it to the thalamus, which is the center of sensory information, to process the sound waves. This all happens within almost an instant when listening to people or music. This is the process that takes place. The Eustachian tube is connected to the middle ear and in the back of your nose. It allows for the equalization of pressure between the ear and the outside world. And the last thing to mention about the inner ear, which is where the cochlea is located, there are 3 loops of tubes filled with fluid to help maintain balance, and these are called the semicircular canals. And that's why you can hear all this, so yeah.